What is up, everybody? We have a great show for you today. If you want to hear a story, literal rags to riches story from nothing to multi-millionaire real estate investor at age 27, stay tuned. How's it going, man?
Mike, thank you for having me, man. It was great meeting you several years ago. I'm glad we stayed in touch. And man, I'm excited to be on here and to chat with you.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to hit because we literally just chance meeting in the audience at a Tom Ferry event. We kind of caught each other's eye, and you told me back then, you're like, yeah, I do commercial real estate and I'm going to grow a YouTube channel. And you told me a couple of things that you were going to do, and you did it. And so I bumped into you again like 4 years later, and you caught me up, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell this story to the world. So let's start with the real estate stuff first. Tell everybody what you do. I mean, obviously, I know you do multifamily and you help people accumulate wealth, but in a nutshell, tell people what you do there.
So I'm the broker owner of Sage Real Estate, and we specialize in multifamily commercial properties, investment properties in Southern California, Long Beach, California. We live here. I have two offices in Long Beach, and yeah, we're one of the high producing brokers here in Long Beach. We are a boutique firm. I'm out there competing with some companies that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. And, we're doing a really good job of it.
Yeah. So you do multifamily mainly, but I would call you a commercial broker, right? So also invest, but tell me who your typical client is.
Well, it's interesting. We represent two types of clients. And it's kind of this, like, the sellers are typically older. They're typically blue collar. They've owned these apartment buildings for 30 years. They've made millions. And listen, I'm in Southern California, so when I throw around the word millions, I'm not just like loosely using it. They literally made millions. They bought call it a 4-unit apartment building for 200,000, 80,000. And now when they contact me, it's worth 1.4 million. And that's one fourplex. And a lot of these people, they don't own just one fourplex. They own multiple units. And so on the selling side, we have these older folks that are ready to retire. And then on the buy side, we have people just like them, younger, wanting to repeat the process. And so then I get to bridge the gap between the old and the young, but everyone does it for the same reasons. I want to retire someday. I want to have passive income. I don't believe that the government's going to take care of me. The pension may not be there. All these concerns. I mean, we don't love to be housing providers, but you just want to set yourself up for the future. That's why people are doing this.
So buyers looking to accumulate wealth, sellers who are cashing in, and your focus is Southern Cal, right? I mean, that's pretty much anywhere in Southern Cal, that's where you're working. But I got to imagine that your client base isn't just Californians. You probably deal like me with people all over the world.
We do have, we do have clients everywhere. I mean, it's common for me to be contacted by someone and they're out of another country and they own apartments here. And how did you hear of me? And either I reach them through postcard campaigns, through now the YouTube channel, which I know we'll get into later, but we spend a lot of money marketing. And so we do have clients worldwide. And it's interesting, like we closed an apartment building. This lady called me and she lived in Italy and she bought here because someone advised her to, and she did well. So yeah.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to hit the YouTube channel 5 years from like, you're like a Lamborghini, 0 to 800, and you're at over 17,000 subscribers. So we're definitely doing a little segment on that. Let's wrap up with the investing here, though. You also are an investor and literally started from nothing. We're going to backtrack to that story to age 27, multi-millionaire real estate investor. Mm-hmm. Tell me that story quickly.
I'm in college. I'm supposed to go into a career in accounting. I have a job with Deloitte and Touche waiting for me out of college. I, as a senior, take this job with Mark Milan, who ends up becoming my mentor, business partner, and really good friend. And Mark, at that moment, is a entrepreneur. He's an investor. He owns a lot of stuff. He owns like self-storages, hotels, apartment buildings, houses, condos, whatever he could buy that he thinks that there's a value, there's a deal. He was buying it, buying and selling and buying and selling. And I couldn't keep up. anyhow, I ended up working with him my senior year of college, and we're getting close to the end of my senior year. And he knows that I'm supposed to go to Deloitte and Touche and become a CPA and have this job that my parents are going to be proud of. And, people could say, wow, he's a CPA, right? That's a really respected career. And that's certainly what I thought. And I did earn the job, only to then call Deloitte and tell them that I was going to go pursue this career in real estate because Mark offered me. Mark said, hey, I know you have this job waiting for you. What is it they're going to pay you? What if I promise to meet the salary they're going to give you, but more importantly, I'm going to teach you how to invest, and I'm going to teach you how to also become a millionaire through investing in multifamily. And at first I said no. It did take a lot of conversations with my dad and a bunch of other people. And then I went back and I took the path less taken. And my friends thought I was an idiot. The professors thought I was an idiot for letting go of that job that everyone wanted. If you do accounting, you want that job. And so anyhow, I that's how it started. And I bought my first investment condo. I was a senior. And I bought my first investment condo, and I did what Mark told me to do to the property in terms of adding value. I made 35,000, sold it, and then I rolled that into my first apartment building. I was 23 at the time.
So first one was a fix and flip,
Yep.
and then you started accumulating buy and hold. And today, just sum up what's your portfolio look like now?
Yeah. So listen, this is not all ups. There's also downs. And so by the time I was 27, I had a lot of apartment buildings, fourplexes, fiveplexes, commercial buildings. And, hey, the market went down. And at that moment, the type of financing that I had on these types of properties wasn't long-term, wasn't secure. And so I learned. And so a lot of these properties, I didn't like lose money, but I had to sell them. So I wasn't like I took a loss, and it wasn't like that. A lot of the properties had to go back. And then I realized, I realized before I was 30, it didn't matter that I got there. What I didn't know, it matters if you keep them like that. And when I say keep them, keep the buildings, because you could ramp up like this whole like word that people use, scale. I scaled quickly. I didn't even know what the word scaling was. I was just saying yes to the opportunity and just moving forward. And so, but now I have a series of apartment buildings. I'm in the middle of trying to sell one of my smaller apartment buildings, which is a triplex. And the goal is to do an exchange, what they call a 1031 exchange, meaning that I forgo paying the taxes on the proceeds so long as I buy something that's bigger. And so the thing that I'm chasing right now, we're in the middle of negotiations, is a 13 unit building. And so that's kind of exciting because listen, I love being a real estate broker. I love being an investor even more. I get more excited investing. It's this thing. I know it's like a thrill or something, but I see it in other people. That's why people invest. People invest because it's risky, it's scary. It just gets the adrenaline going, and finding opportunities and negotiating. All of that is really fun. It really is.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. I have a bunch of follow-up questions for you. Before I proceed, though, one of the things that I think gives you instant credibility as a broker is that you've done it. I think so many people, like, they say, oh, if you can't do it, you teach, but you're not that guy. You're actually out there in the trenches doing it. So people come to you for that direction, that advice, and we'll get to it on the YouTube channel. But let's pause for a second here. I know there's some people who are going to say, how do I get a hold of this guy? He already has my ear. Real quick, your preferred method for people to reach out to you?
Probably the easiest way at first is just follow our Instagram channel at Multifamily Long Beach. Again, at Multifamily Long Beach. I would say start there and just check out some of the stuff that we have. If you say, hey, I heard you on Mike's podcast and here's my question, reference this podcast, and then I'll know that it's from here. And then and start there. I mean, the YouTube channel is just plug in Sage Real Estate into YouTube and we'll pop up there too. And that's probably our biggest platform. And people certainly reach out to us from there.
Yeah. And that's, I found you just by searching your name there, and certainly we'll have your info on the screen and people will know how to reach you. But from your last answer, I have a couple things I want to ask you about. All right. So I have some people who are now proponents of skip college altogether, get a mentor like you had, and get under someone's wing, get paid to learn. What's your take on that?
I hate to say this because I do have two young daughters, but college is no longer the answer. College is no longer the answer. And you haven't touched on this, Mike, but my family comes from Mexico. I come from a family of 8, and we left Mexico because my parents only had a 6th grade education, and they brought us here. I was 4 when they brought us, but they brought us here for an education because they only had a 6th grade education. So we kind of came here, and it was like really ingrained in us that education, 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 and we wanted to make our parents proud. And so college degree was like critically important for all 8 of us. And then we've all achieved that, and others have gone on and gotten doctorate degrees and stuff like that out of my family, which we're proud of. But now looking back, college is good for some people. It's not necessary. Like I talk to parents and they're like, oh, my son doesn't want to go to college. I'm like, fine. You don't have to do that. There's trade schools, and there's other ways to get there. Man, there's people who have doctorate degrees and they're wanting to work for my company. I'm like, you spend all the time doing school, and I don't know. I no longer am preaching and think that that's a necessary thing, although I went down that path.
Yeah, as did I. So bachelor's, master's, MBA. And, when I reflect back, I think, okay, that taught me how to learn. It taught me how to think and problem solve. But the reality is that I learned so much more in the trenches, and so, getting back to investing, and I am going to backpedal and talk about your story because it's incredible. I mean, people look at us, Juan, and I'm sure you get it all the time. Oh, he probably started with money, and all they see is that tip of the iceberg, right? They don't see everything that went behind it. But, going back for a second to, that whole investing and building wealth, I started the same way, right out of college, bought my first property. And I just think it's kind of interesting that even doctors and lawyers and all these people with these great jobs, they love real estate. We're so lucky to be in this field. And it is that excitement, that thrill, but it's something that we're in control of. It's not like going to the blackjack table and putting it all on black, right? So it's an investment where you actually have some influence over the end result. And I think that's the allure of it. Wouldn't you agree?
You know what I tell people on my channel? I tell people, when you buy an apartment building, even if it's small, but like one that's an investment, I'm like, you just bought a business. Congratulations. You are now a business owner. But no one calls it that. People say, I'm a landlord, I'm a housing provider. No one says, I'm a business owner. Oh yeah, well, what do you own? Well, I own 3 different businesses, 3 different fourplexes. Or hey, I own one that's an 8 unit or a 12 unit or a 16 unit, and I own a duplex. These are businesses, Mike. Like these are, there's income coming in, there's expenses, there's a sense of behind it, not as much, but it's one of those things where I tell people, congratulations, you just bought a business. And guess what? You don't have to clock in every day. You don't have to clock in, clock out. It makes money when you sleep. It's the best, but people don't view it like that. It is a business. And I would say own as many businesses as possible.
Absolutely. That's what Tom Ferry talks about, right? Multiple streams of income. And I think that's why so many smart people, like these doctors and lawyers that you and I interact with, they say, how can I generate multiple streams of income? So in your last answer, you also mentioned ups and downs. And so we're not going to only talk about successes. I do want you to tell me 1 or 2 stories, maybe some failures and what you learned from those, like some butt punches that you took along the way to this success. You got 1 or 2 of those stories you can share?
Yeah, so this was probably like 2007, 2008. The market was really hot. So properties were coming on market, multiple buyers, and you're having to outbid and stuff. And so back then, what we were doing is getting like hard money loans, these are like short-term loans at really high interest rates, and they're costly. Now, you could use them to your advantage. So I don't want anyone listening to this saying, hey, Juan said they're bad. No, no, no. You could make money using them, and it's kind of a temporary financing at a very high cost. Welcome to the world of business, okay? And so we were getting those types of loans, or sometimes we were telling the seller, hey, we'll give you your crazy high price, but we need you to carry back a loan for a year, 18 months, 24 months. And when the market did turn, because here's the thing, in the world of real estate, you don't lose money unless you have to sell. You do not lose money unless you have to sell. So why the hell would you sell? Well, in my situation, I mean, sometimes you don't have to. So just write it out. It goes back up. It's okay. And writing it out doesn't mean you're working extra hard overtime. No, managing units is not that hard, But so going back to my point was, what I learned, and I want people to know, is that if you're using short-term financing like I was using, and the market turns and you have to pay off that debt, that's where you get in trouble. And that's where then I started had to sell a lot of the buildings that we had acquired. And so now I'm a big proponent to just making sure like, well, how's the market going to be 2, 3, 5 years from now? And what type of, listen, at that time, I was so young. Mark did tell me, hey, Juan, hey, the market's crazy. He was still buying too. So it wasn't like, he did tell me, Juan, that there are downturns. Because at that point in my life, all I saw was up.
Right.
And so now I'm more cautious. Now the type of financing that we get is important. The 13 unit deal that I'm looking at right now, I'm trying to secure 7, 10 year financing on it. Why? Because I believe the market's going to be different. Well, I know it's going to be different 7, 10 years from now. And that gives me time for that property to appreciate. So financing, people buy fix and flips with like hard money loans, which is good. It's just, you gotta look out at the horizon, and then you got to ask yourself, well, how do I think the market's going to play out? And if you're stuck with that property, how can you pay it off? And is there going to be a market to buy it from you? Because now you're stuck with that payment. So just being smarter. And
Yep.
so yeah, it was okay. Listen, you learn that it's possible to grow, and then you learn that it's possible that those things go away. But I learned that, sometimes I talk to my friends, and they kind of they're anxious, or they don't feel that they're growing their investments fast enough. And I tell them, guys, it's easy to, when the time is right, it's easy to scale. And anything that, like, if you think, oh man, I missed the last 5 years of opportunity, I think you could make up the 5 years with one great transaction. So I don't put a lot of weight on, timing. I don't think that is as important.
Yeah, I would agree. So your gut punch was having to sell some properties. And I mean, did you literally lose money on them?
I would say we broke even on those, but kind of going from all these doors, and then you drop down to, that wasn't good. I mean, there was probably a slight loss. It wasn't a crazy thing, but that's what it was, is letting go of those buildings that we had.
Got it. And it was a smart choice for you at the time. You did it, you absorbed it, you moved on. So if imagine I'm listening to this show and I'm either A, thinking about getting into investing, or B, I'm dabbling. I maybe own a single, a double, something like that. And I'm thinking, you know what? This sounds really cool. Multifamily excites me. I've got some money to play with. What's your advice for that guy or gal listening? Not your big gold nugget, because best advice ever comes at the end, but newbie or novice investor hearing you, what do you tell them to do? Step one.
Know the market. And I know people are going to hear that like, well, what's that mean? Like, all right, like, so let's just take Ohio. Okay. I've never been, but so let's just say that you find a small apartment building. And then my question is, what's the vacancy rate? Let's look back at rents. Have rents increased in the last 10 years? If so, by what amount? Is there a lot of new product coming onto market? And what I mean is, if you buy this small apartment building, is there demand from the rental market? If there's not, then I'd say I probably don't buy that one, because I'm not saying just buy anything. I'm saying go in a place that's in the path of growth, that has traditionally had positive trends. Positive trends means, hey, the rents have gone up the last 10 years. Hey, they recently built this community college, and people are starting to kind of move in, and that kind of thing. Or, hey, there's this big employer who came into town. Like, you want to look for a place where typically, Mike, well, in every case, if the rents go up, the value of the asset goes up. So the rents go up, the value of the asset goes up.
That's
It's
right.
just the way it works. So you want to, so if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to buy, and I live in Ohio, I'm like, let's really look into the market of Ohio, and let's see how it's performing. But like, because I want to know, like, if we buy this apartment building, is it going to be fully leased? How quick are people moving out? I'm not too worried about the maintenance in Ohio. I mean, I would imagine that cost and labor and everything probably wouldn't be too crazy there. I would want to know, is there statewide rent control? Maybe there is, maybe there's not, maybe there's coming, and maybe it's on its way, whether people like it or not. And then I would just want to know, how have values been? Where are values going? And so this is just all market data. But this could
Yeah.
be done. This could be done in any market. You could be in Texas and say, you know what? I heard what Juan said, and let's look at that. Once you know a market, like with Long Beach, I don't need to look at where the rents are going or where they've been. I know where they've been. I don't need to look at values. I know where they're at. And so then I tell people, once you get started with your first apartment building and you realize, hey, that wasn't so hard. The the actual buying of it is the hard part, like the negotiating and being an escrow and the inspections. Like that's where you get really nervous. And I still get nervous. And I want to tell people that I still get nervous too on my purchases because I want that to know that's a very normal feeling, even when you've done a lot of it. And I've done a lot of it. And so, that's what I would tell people is that you have to be in a path of growth. You want to have an asset that there's demand for the asset because there's not enough housing. Like if you're investing in a place where there's a housing shortage, like in Southern California, that's exactly where you should be investing. There's a
Yeah.
housing shortage. Yeah.
Yep. And our markets are so different. I appreciate you mentioning Ohio. Nice little plug for us here. But, people come to me and they say, I hear you guys have great cash flow.
Mhm.
I imagine California, you're not so much investing for cash flow as you are appreciation, but hopefully you have a little bit of a balance, right? So the know your market advice, I think, starts with building your team. So you could start from scratch and do all your own research, or you contact an area expert. And the team includes a guy like you in Long Beach and a guy like me in the Cleveland, Northeast Ohio area. But that's great advice. Start with that basic knowledge before you start throwing money at something. I have people that come to me and say, I've got this much money and I want to spend it. And I say, whoa, slow down a minute. Let's figure out what your goals are and that kind of stuff. So I think that's really great advice. And by the way, thanks for sharing that you still get a little scared, nervous when you're making a purchase. I think that's normal, and that's kind of you to be a little vulnerable with us here. Thank you.
Mhm. Sure.
All right. We teased at the backstory, so I really want to hear that story told from you. I mean, literally starting from nothing. I mean, small village in Mexico, and you guys come here with nothing. Literally, you're working the fields, and to where you are now. Can you share that story a little bit?
So in late 70s, in the 70s, my father was coming up to the Central Valley of California. And so for those people listening, I would imagine the Central Valley, surprisingly, like not all of California is like palm trees and beach. There's a massive part in the center of California that is probably pretty much a lot like Ohio. It's a lot like Iowa. It's with the flat, tons of farming. There are farmers, there are real cowboys in California and a big portion of it. And so my dad was coming up and my dad would cross the border illegally for years and he'd come up here, he'd work, he'd stay for 2 years. It made life, and then he would send money home. Home was a desolate desert area. Um, you know, the there was stories that my sisters would tell us that when in the summer it got so hot in our small little ranch in Mexico that and the water would dry up that our cows would die because there wasn't enough water for them.
Wow.
And so no running water, no electricity, there's no TV there. So growing up, that's all we knew. We had a house with dirt floors. My dad would make the furniture. This was like, you don't go to a furniture store, there was nothing there. There was a river, when there was water and times were good, and then the teacher that would come in, if they couldn't cross the river, then you didn't have a teacher that day. And so that was the type of life that we had. And so then my dad, like other men, would come up to the US, work, send money home. But leaving my mom home with, 7, 8 children to raise them all by themselves on this ranch, I was really hard on her. It was hard on my siblings. So my sisters would talk about, and I'm not making this up, Mike. They would walk hours in the morning to go to a water well to bring water back for the family to have water.
Hmm.
And I didn't do that. I was too young to do that, but they did that. And they said, Juan, we would wake up at 3:30 in the morning and then we would go off, and go do this.
Hmm.
And so the time came where my mom got fed up and said, hey, I can't raise this family alone and you're up there. Thanks for the money, but that's like the kids miss you. And so then, because my dad would come back, but then he would have to go back, and that was crushing to my siblings. I was one of the younger ones, so I don't really recall all that. But the time came where they sold the little house, the little ranch, they were and the cows that they had left, and they had enough money. And back then it was $1,500, Mike, to pay a human trafficker to bring you across, and a lot of money. And but that was the only way that my father could get us out of that situation in Mexico. So I know people hear this and it's in the news and yeah, I'm not saying pro against. All I'm saying is this is my story
Yeah.
and my family. And thank God my dad brought us to the US. It was my dad and my mom. It wasn't just my dad. And we traveled for days to get to the border because we were far from the border. And we once we got to the border, like my we had an uncle who had set everything up for us where he dropped us off in the middle of the desert at a certain time. And we met up with other men that were also trying to achieve the same goal of getting to the US. There was a total of 30 people. My mom was worried because she had young daughters and we're around men who are crossing. She doesn't know who they are, what country they're from. She did hide a gun. She did hide a gun on her because, she had to protect the family and as did my dad. And when we crossed that border, we got caught and we walked for hours and hours and hours and we were tired. And I was carried a big portion of it because I was so young. And then I had a younger sister too. And so both of us got carried a lot by family. But then we got caught by immigration. We got sent back to Mexico. And then my dad came up with another plan to set something else up for us to finally get across.
So even though we don't get political here, I know that your story is probably shocking to some people and maybe even angering some of them. But, we're going to get to the part here where, your family now is like valued members of society. You've got you and your siblings and, again, multi-millionaire real estate investor. I mean, these things you're saying, I mean, this is real life. This is a family trying to get out of poverty, doing what they have to do to achieve a better life, just like any parent would do for their children. So again, not to get political here, but please go back there. So you guys get caught, you get sent back. What happens next?
That whole experience for my mother was very shocking. And there was a time there was a time where my dad talked to the human traffickers and said, "Hey guys, well, this is before we got caught." And he said, "Hey, my kids are tired. Can you let us rest?" And so they said, "All right, everyone take like a 30, 45-minute rest." And so then my mom tried to get us to sleep in the desert.
Mm,
Oh, and by the way, she had our bodies covered in this like alcohol mix that she made because spiders, snakes. I'm 4, Mike. My sister's 2, and then from there, everyone's like 2 years older, and so you could imagine you're crossing the border. At that moment, we were a family of 9. So my father, my mother, and then there were 7 of us. And during that time, everyone rested. My dad just kind of he didn't rest. He just kind of stayed up walking around the family, making sure nothing happened to them. And um, so once we got sent back, my we had an uncle in a part of Mexico called Mexicali. It's on the other side of the border. And from there, they were able to arrange an actual van to try to get us across and drive across. This was like 1983. So I'm assuming it was a little easier to do it. Well, I mean, heck, maybe it's easy now too, but and so the second time we were able to get across, and I remember waking up and seeing roads and cars and things I had never seen before. Because all I knew in Mexico was horses and donkeys and dirt roads and rocks and like dry landscape is all I knew. And here I was looking at, we were in the Central Valley and things were green and it was clean and that was the beginning. One thing that I want to know is how people are like, "Hey Juan, you got this great attitude." I'm like, "Man, I'm living the American dream. I'm living the American dream and we're proud Americans." And sometimes immigrants, it's interesting. Sometimes your most patriotic folks out there are immigrants just like us
yeah.
because
Well,
they know the offer. They're like, "Man, this is way better than what we had there." And yeah, I'm not saying it's easy. We have to work and we have to invest, and life is hard regardless of who you are. But we're we're definitely happy to be here in the US.
Yeah. Well, we're a country of immigrants, and I think people forget that sometimes. But something you said, I mean, literally, you had never seen a paved road in your life.
No,
Incredible.
no.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. But when you hear rags to riches, I mean, that's that very definition of it. When I was doing some research on you, I read that, and I'm like, wow, we got to talk about that. And of course, fast forward, hard work, education, and here you are today. Just what a journey. I have to ask you this: when is the book coming out?
I do have a marketing director, and there's a lot of things that we tackle. And in 2024, we tackled finally getting my podcast launched.
Yeah.
That was in 2024. Yeah. So then in 2024, I mean, there's a lot of things we want to do, and things take a lot of work, and I'm running a business. And
Yeah.
so to kind of do it all in the investments, it's a lot. And so every year is something new. And so this
Yeah.
past year was the podcast. This next year, one of the big things that I'm tackling is we're hosting our first annual multifamily investor summit. Like I'm hosting it, hosted by Juan
Wow.
Huizar. And so this is going to be a conference here in Long Beach for investors, people to come, network, learn, and half day event. So that's like, I mean, Mike, these are things outside of like our business, right? But
Yeah.
and I know through like, hey, this is how we become an authority. This is how we become the
Right.
knowledge broker. It's like, hey, we attended Juan's event. And so that's my next like big thing that I'm doing. But the book is out. The book idea is out there, and we have some chapters, titles written and that type of stuff, but it's still coming. I have to be ready because a
Yeah.
lot of these things I wasn't ready. Like the podcast discussion had been around for 4 years and I wasn't ready. And hey, you should have your own conference was around for years and I wasn't ready. And then the time will come, I know when I'll say that I'm ready. And
Yeah.
so hopefully in the
Well,
next 18
I
months.
didn't know that. I didn't know you were thinking about a book. I just hear that story and I think that's a book I would read. So I kind of said that tongue in cheek, but I love it. Yeah, I love that you're
Yeah.
actually thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
don't want to, I don't want to think about things for a long period of time and then have them sit in my mind and not do anything with it. That drives me nuts.
yeah,
It
same here.
drives me, it drives me nuts when I hear it from other people when they've been saying something for the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to do anything about it. That is unacceptable to me.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah.
Great segue to I got to talk about your YouTube channel. So like you mentioned it, Juan, we're real estate brokers, right? So that's our primary function, and yet we have to find time for all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So 4.5, 5 years ago, I met you at the Tom Ferry event, and you said, I'm going to start my YouTube channel, and bam, here we are, 17,000 subscribers. I love the saying, there's riches in niches, and your YouTube channel is so specific. I'm just wondering if you could share the secret. Like, what did you do that took you from starting your YouTube channel to growing it to such a big following?
Well, know this, Mike. 5 years ago, this is not what I wanted to do. Now, I mean, through our coaching, right? So this is like you're learning, you're investing in getting better. I'm learning, I'm investing in getting better. This all having a coach costs money, traveling to events costs money, time, money, and you're investing in yourself, and I'm doing it, Mike. So Tom's talking about he's telling us 5 years ago that everyone here needs to have a YouTube channel and you need to be recording video because you need to show people that you're an expert and what it is that you do. And he said, if you don't do this, then I'm going to just consider you a secret agent. And that bothered me, man, because at that moment, I had a wealth of like knowledge of investing, helping clients, but just being an investor. Like people call me all the time, like, hey, Juan, I'm thinking about buying this. What do you think? And so it bothered me that I didn't want to be a secret. And I realized that it's up to me to not be a secret. And I hired someone to do 5 videos reluctantly for the YouTube channel. And I only, at first, Mike, I only had one idea because the videographer said, well, what's the first video? I'm like, oh, I'll teach people how to analyze real estate. And then we did it and it was brutal. Like I was horrible on camera. You don't know this, but growing up, well into my adulthood, Mike, I had a severe stutter. I don't have, and it wasn't like a cute stutter. Oh, it's a cute stutter. No, it was really bad. It's been this thing that's affected my entire life. I don't have it as much anymore. It does come back, but now I share it. Sometimes people will come up to me and say, "Hey, thanks for saying that." Like, But I had a severe speech impediment. So when Tom was like, "Oh, you should have a YouTube channel," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I hate answering my phone." I mean, like it's a struggle to get these words out. And so I didn't want to do it. But once we got started, I only had that one idea. And he's like, "Well, what's the second idea?" I'm like, "I don't know what else to talk about." And it took time to kind of do those videos and shoot and reshoot, and it was painful getting through it. And the only reason I mentioned this is because anyone who hears this, or like, it wasn't easy. It wasn't like turn on the camera and Juan's a natural. Heck no. It took a lot of videos, a lot of time. And the one thing that changed, Mike, was once people like, I was at 30 subscribers and then it went to like 75 subscribers, and people started reaching out and commenting. That's when I realized, wait, people care about this. And it was like at little baby steps of success. And I call it momentum. I started getting momentum. I was like, oh, I thought, who's going to watch here's what I thought. Here's what I really thought, Mike. Who's going to watch my dumb videos? That's what I thought in my mind. That was like my limiting belief, is that I thought my videos were dumb.
So I imagine that the consistency of producing video, I think you were at about 200 videos. So the consistency and then continuing to put out basically your brain, your knowledge into video, people that were interested in it gravitated to it. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
It was the fastest way to automate trust. The
Yeah.
fastest way to automate trust was to put everything that I know out for free. And I know some people are going to be like, for free? Why are you doing it for free? Because that is how you build trust.
Yep.
At the end of the day, like, if you're a realtor, you're a broker, like if you're someone in the world of sales, actually any sales, it doesn't even matter. They're not hiring us, Mike, because we're different. It's not because we're better, have the fancier office, or my marketing material is fancy and the gloss is nice and my sign and my picture and my hair. We think those dumb things. The reason people choose to go with us is because they trust us. And one of the ways to get people to trust you is that they see you, is that you trust people you learn from. That's what it is. You trust people you learn from. Like, you trust your college professors, you trust your doctor, they're teaching you things. You trust people you learn from. And so to me, now, I did not know this going in. So I share this now because if you've not gotten started and you're a sales professional and you're not doing video and putting these things out, that's what this is that we're going to teach people. We build trust, we give everything away for free, and then the business pours in.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that story. And again, I'm glad you shared your origin story, as it were, because we really have no excuses. Most of us listening here started with so much more than you did. So thank you for sharing all that. I do want to get to the culmination of the show here, which is best advice ever. We have investors who listen to the show, agents, brokers from all over. So I've asked you to come up with your gold nugget, your best advice ever, and it could be for investors, agents, brokers, whatever. So as you think about that, Juan, what is the one thing that you'd want to convey today to our audience?
This saying came from my mentor, Mark Milan. He was the one that kind of got me into real estate investing and everything. And he said, and I think it's his quote because I haven't heard anyone else say it. He said, real estate, it's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. It's not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed. And so he's letting you know, like, hey, this is a long-term game. We're not buying this because we're going to, like, it's a long-term game. And so I think that that's still true. I think if anyone hears this and says, Juan said it's not get rich quick, but it's get rich guaranteed. Yeah. Fast forward 10 years and you bought something today, you're going to be in a good place. You're going to be glad. Like, not many people do I know who said, God, I should have not bought that building 20 years ago. No one says that. No one has ever said that. Ever
I've
said
never heard
that.
it. Yeah, no one, I've never heard it either.
So it's probably the best advice. If you fast forward this thing, it is real estate is not get rich quick, it's get rich guaranteed.
I love it. Well, so if you are interested in multifamily, especially Long Beach, SoCal, Juan Huizar at Multifamily Long Beach is the best place to find him, or just go on YouTube and search. You're so easy to find. You've got so much content out there. I love that you've shared so much today, Juan, and just being here and giving us this time. I'm so appreciative. So thank you so much for being here. We'll have to get together again at the next Tom Ferry event
in Orlando. Mike, thanks for having me, man. And thanks for allowing me to share my story. A couple things. If anyone's listening, I do have an event in Southern California, February 27th, and that's our Multifamily Investor Summit. So look into that from our website. I did create a how to analyze investment real estate course that people could check out on our website. Our website, by the way, is sageregroup.com, sageregroup.com. Our website I've had web developers make calculators, making it easier for you to analyze property. So and these are free. This is like, I'm not even selling anything there. The course I'm selling, the calculators are free. This is tools that I use every day that you or your listeners, anyone has access to. We're not even going to ask for your email. You just log in, and our calculators, because we track this, are some of the most visited landing pages on our site. So I know they're of value, and we're creating more as we kind of get ideas on what's working and what's not working. So please check that out. Follow our YouTube channel /Sage Real Estate, youtube.com/Sage Real Estate, and then yeah, I hope this was valuable. If anyone took anything away, certainly send us a message. Make sure you reference Mike so I know it's coming from here.
Incredible. And please, guys, drop your comments below. If you have questions, you can reach out to both of us. Sageregroup.com is the website again. Of course, we'll have that on the screen. And by the way, guys, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and drop your comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think about today's interview. I found it incredibly inspiring. I'm going to go out now and crush it for the rest of the day, Juan. So I appreciate you a lot.
Mike, thanks for the opportunity. Have a good day.
Thanks.